And so they had Biden come out aggressively and say, like, I'm against defund, when there was no need even to really talk about it. He just brought it to the fore. And in the end, the Republicans still attack him and say Biden and the Democrats are for defunding the police. So it's just a way to kick the left. And I don't see the value in it, honestly.
So I guess I probably agree that it's not necessarily new that the left is kicked. I think what's new, in my view, at least, is the focus on data is part of it. Like, you have like a group of people who are very focused on my special data, my polls. I don't think in 1996 or 2006 that was as clear that I did these special polls which showed Latino voters move right based on this one phrase that I think these sort of, and I actually view Biden a little bit differently, which is I don't actually think that he is necessarily trying to choose sides. I actually think he's around so many establishment moderate Democrats who say to him all the time, the left is killing us, defund. I think he genuinely might believe that, saying what he said is going to help. I don't see much evidence for that. But I think if your entire circle is these kinds of Democrats who've told you won in 2020 because you pushed the left aside, I actually think he might be less cynical than other people doing this are.
Well, let me ask you about this. What do you think the impact of him saying that will be? I mean, because on some level, I mean, look, I'm with Emma. I think it was gratuitous, but he said it, and supposedly this is what the moderates wanted. This was going to be the cure-all, right? I mean, and so did he? And I agree with you. I don't think that he's, I think he's basically, his engagement in this stuff, I think is of a different sort than maybe, let's say, a Josh Gottheimer. Let's put it that way.
This is what I'm getting at. Right. That's a good name to pick, in fact. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's always been a sieve as far as I'm concerned. And he's surrounded by these people, and he thinks he's helping the Democratic Party here. But did he also inadvertently undercut the moderates' ability to say this is a problem? Because on some level, it's the Chuck Todds, with all due respect to Chuck Todd, although not.
I think you should have a lot of respect for Chuck Todd, but anyway, right.
But it's those ilk of people who have been sort of like echoing, Josh Gottheimer doesn't have any more access to any, to the people, to the narrative than, let's say, AOC does, maybe, except for those talking heads who respond to that. Did Joe Biden undercut that project of being able to blame any type of failures on defund or wokeness or something like that?
I mean, it should have. Obviously, the president saying we don't believe in defund in a huge speech.
And he said it like 12 times.
12 times. He already said it a bunch of times. So he said it also in 12 times in 2020. So I think
fund them over and over again.
So I think in a rational world, if Abigail Spanberger or Elaine Luria lose their elections, they cannot say, well, the left said defund 7 times, and therefore people in my district thought I was. Obviously, they should not be able to say that. And, a rational person would be like, maybe not, it's not a great argument, but no. I think that you will still see, I think those people will literally invoke defund again when they lose, because I think this is so easy to discredit the left on. And I think if you're debating whether, in some ways we're watching a pretty intense intra-party fight, I think. And so I don't think people are going to defund is such a toxic, it doesn't poll well. It doesn't poll that well among Black people even. So I really do think it's such a powerful, Clyburn has said defund is important, bad. So I think it's such a powerful wedge for the center to attack the left on. I think it'll come up next January too, unfortunately.
Characterize for us what this fight within the Democratic Party is, because I don't get the sense that there is a huge market out there for this argument about the Democrats not performing well because of defund or even wokeness on some level. I mean, I think it's there on the conservative side, but within the universe of potential voters for Democrats, or as we get narrowed down, right? This argument is deployed for a narrower set of people, it seems to me, and within the context of that, like who is this fight between?
I don't think this is a fight about voters at all. I think this is a real intra-party fight that's basically about, did you support Elizabeth Warren or Sanders? Did you not? And I think it goes to a level of kind of who should be listened to. Like on some level, like, did inflation happen, and was it because of the checks is an empirical issue that we could debate. I think, should you listen to Jason Furman or Stephanie Kelton is the actual debate we're having. Should you listen to Nicole Hannah-Jones or Matt Iglesias is the debate we're actually having. Should you listen to David Shore or Steve Phillips should you listen to the black people or the white people is often a more precise way to get at that, but I don't say that, but there are some, cross-racial debates here, but in my view, a lot of this is the sort of fight racial inequality really sharply view get really strong in sort of June 2020. It's increasingly hard if you don't think affirmative action is good, if you don't think the party should be focused on racial equity, it's no longer easy to oppose that directly. So what you can, if you're a Democrat, so what you can say is, I agree with you guys on reparations. I agree with you on racial equity. I agree with you on the policing. It just doesn't poll well. I mean, that's what you can say instead. And I think that's what, if you read a lot of the arguments, that's what you're really hearing is, there are things I'm uncomfortable with, and how do I oppose them? Here are my poll numbers.
Now, but I guess what I'm asking is, who's the you in this? When you say, like, should you listen to Stephanie Kelton or Jason?
Should Joe Biden? Should regular Democratic voters? Should Joe Biden? I think should Joe Biden? It's not should the Nancy Pelosi. I think there is actually. Joe Biden is pretty, if you compare his speeches in 2021, 2022, I know he's a centrist, but his speech in 2021 actually was full of talk about race. His speech in 2022 was absent of it. Joe Biden and Pelosi are actually and most Democratic voters are actually pretty fluid in terms of what they will support. And I think that's the argument we're having here.
Who are the ones who are lining up in those camps? Is it an ideological divide, or is it, because I am of the mind that much of this is almost a rear guard fight by people who are making money, really the consultant class in the Democratic Party, it seems to me, right? Because ultimately, like you say, Joe Biden's just looking around and hearing voices in his ears, right? And who's in that room at any given time, I think to a certain extent, is going to influence what he's coming out with. But the people in that room, they want to be in that room, and maybe not so much for Joe Biden at this moment, or maybe Joe Biden, but also for all these other candidates, because they're going to get basically, they're going to get knighted, or they're going to get some type of blessing from the Senate Reelect Committee and the Congressional Reelect Committee, and there's a lot of money to be made here for these individuals, and they want to be the ones in that room, right? Is that? But give me your sense of who those players are.
So my sense of this is much more, let me be careful here because he works with me, but it's much more about Larry Summers or Stephanie Kelton and less about the consultant class. Generally has a general view that you should turn out more voters, you should be toward the middle, but the consultants give the consultants work for Stacey Abrams, Raphael Warnock, Mandela Barnes, but also Josh Gottheimer. I think they're open. The consultant class, I don't think, is religiously open because making more money means you have to work for progressives and for centrists. I think it's actually not that. I think it's a little bit at the intellectual level versus, which is more sort of who is wrong and whose theories on X and Y. Yeah, I actually happen to think it's this, and there is at the party level, Gottheimer versus AOC.